all being buffed by the spells. Tomb Swarm, Casket of Souls. Job done.
I'm going to have to bleep every time you say that. Welcome to episode 2 of Judging the Journal. This week we're looking at the Tomb Kings, but not just any Tomb Kings. Are you sick of the monarchy? Well, come on down, because no gods, no kings, no masters for you. We've got Lich Priests galore. We've got the Mortuary Cult. How are you feeling about this one, Lewis?
I am very excited for this one. I'm just going to get my Vampire Counts Arcane Journal vibes through this one, given that there are some skeletons involved.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally the same in a lot of ways. Still undead. You don't scream things to death. You do kill things in potentially broken ways that people are going to be upset about, but that's okay, because it's a lot of fun for you.
Now, looking forward to getting some bigger constructs on the board. This is what we like to see.
The Tomb Kings, I really like the Tomb Kings, but the skeletons, the models are just so old that I can't do them. But what if you couldn't take the skeletons? What if you were limited to just the nicer models? That's what we're going to talk about. Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, we're just going to quickly blast through what you get as a Tomb King player. If you're watching this, you probably know what we're getting. So we're going to do it, quick and dirty. First of all, Arrows of Asaph. I think I pronounced that correctly. Your shooting attacks ignore hit modifiers if you have this rule. This is fine. It means that you have a low ballistic skill. It's usually 5, but you are going to be hitting more consistently with those arrows. Your skeleton horsemen are going to be moving every time. They're still going to be hitting on 5s, which is really nice. Ushabti have, and I should have checked this before, but I leave Ushabti have ballistic skill 3. They do. So their great bows, if you take them, and they are pretty tasty, will be hitting on 4s, which is quite nice. Because maybe you don't want to run your own big dragon in this detachment. What if you had other ways to threaten large monsters? It's pretty good. Then we've got Cleaving Blow. This is the USR that should have been a USR. A lot of armies have it on a 6 to wound. If you're attacking normal, light or heavy, infantry or cavalry, you ignore armor saves and regen, and they lose a wound. It doesn't quite killing blow them, but it's, sort of baby killing blow. The sort of rule that you can put on an entire unit, such as Tomb Guard or Grave Guard. Great stuff.
Is this worded identically in every single list where it comes up?
I haven't checked, but yeah, it definitely is. If it's not, I will eat the photoshopped hat from the last video that went out yesterday. Go and watch that.
You're going to eat a virtual hat.
Yeah.
Everyone eating your laptop.
Hold on, time is not the same for us and for viewers. Okay, that came out last week. Don't worry about it. I'll still eat the hat if I'm wrong. Moving on, we've got the Curse of Necropolis. This is tied to, I believe it's just characters. So Lich Priest, for example, if you kill the Lich Priest, the unit that did takes a leadership test. If they fail, they take D3 Strength 2 hits. You can, there's no AP. It's whatever. It's flavorful. It's nice on that behalf. Maybe it matters, gets you that little bit of combat res, but if your characters are dying, it's all gone horrendously wrong. So, too bad, so sad. Dryer's Dust. This isn't on every model. This is on a weird selection of things. So it's basically flaming attacks have a 50% chance to do an extra wound to you. It's fine. It's aggressively fine.
It's on a lot of the characters, isn't it?
Well, it's not on the ones that you're going to be taking. Vulnerable. It's not on Lich Priests.
Is it not?
No, it's not. It's on Tomb Kings, it's on Tomb Princes, but I probably don't care about those. I think it's on Necrotects, so maybe that happens. But if you do want to run a Bone Dragon, it's on there, and the Casket of Souls, which is incredible in any version of Tomb Kings.
Yeah.
You could write a list that started with 2 of those for any version of Tomb Kings that allows it. So we haven't, because I think that's dull, but it is a very good unit. Indomitable X. You take X less wounds from unstable, or if the Hierophant dies when the unit starts to crumble. This is just a good rule. You normally see it on characters. Sometimes you see it on things that maybe don't need it to be good already. Cough, cough, Tomb Scorpions. But, just great to have. And the BSB gives you some Indomitable in an aura as well. Moving on, we've got Kapesh. Hand weapons get AP1. This is the same as every army's rule apart from Orcs. Orcs have the good version. Everyone else has the okay version. But you get AP1 hand weapons.
Can't say fairer than that.
Well, you can say extra AP and reroll 1s to wound with all non-magical weapons. But then we've got Nikarian Undead. So this is something that applies to the whole army. Your entire army gets fear. immune to psychology, so it's never falling back, it's only ever giving ground. Unbreakable and unstable. So unstable is the downside here. If you lose combat, the amount you lose by, that's how many wounds you take. You start to crumble when you lose combat. So if you lose by 5, you take 5 additional wounds after the combat resolves, and then you give ground as well. And then we've got one here, well, 2 here that aren't technically army rules, but they're important. We've got the Hierophant. The highest level wizard you have is your Hierophant. If it dies, the army begins to crumble. Basically, I think it's every start of turn, on your turn, you take a leadership test for each unit, and they, if they fail, they start to take, crumble tests, and Indomitable helps with that one. Arise, Lich Priest not in combat can take a leadership test. If they pass, they resurrect models in a unit. So this is, put wounds back on models until they're full. If there's no models on below any wounds, you res a model. Nice and simple. Same as the vampire counts, if you've seen us talk about that one. And this is the same there. So you start off with infantry and swarms. You get your wizard level plus D3, cavalry and war beasts wizard level plus 1, monstrous infantry or cavalry and chariots just get the flat wizard level, and then heavy chariots and monsters get a single wound. So your bone dragon, your necrosphinxes, you can't top them back up to full very easily, but you can top them up a little bit, which is nice to have.
And spoiler alert, the Mortuary Cult plays around a lot with this rule. This is something that's going to keep coming up, and I think it's
I
going to be
don't
really
know what you're
important.
talking about.
When I was writing lists, I was like, how many level 1 casters do I want to put in? Just to try and keep a wall of necrosphinxes topped up as much as possible. I didn't go in
That's the thing, isn't it? Because a level 1 character is got exactly the same chance to heal up that single wound on the monster
55
anyway.
points for a Mortuary Priest. It's not bad. You could definitely go in that direction, but I think there's more interesting ways to go than just spamming bad characters that do nothing else. So that's what you get to start with just for playing Tomb Kings. But what you get if you're playing Mortuary Cult? Give us a run through on these ones, Lewis.
Yeah, so you get 4 special rules here. First one is called the Authority of the Hierophant. I think this is basically just a bit of admin, effectively. The Mortuary Cult has to include a Lich Priest, and one of those Lich Priests has to be your Hierophant. And your Hierophant is the general, and he's the guy that if he dies, then everything else starts crumbling away. So just basically means kind of gets around the Tomb King and the Tomb Prince side of things, which you're not allowed to take in this list. The next one is called Harmonious Incantations. If you use the Arise special rule, which we've already discussed, and you're in range or you're in the command range of one or more other friendly Lich Priests, the number of lost wounds the user recovers is increased by 1. So this doesn't necessarily mean a huge amount on your kind of infantry models, but the minute you're putting this on a monster, you've effectively doubled the effectiveness of Arise straight off the bat.
Yeah, really nice.
Really, really solid.
Something to point out here as well, it's command range, so you can use your general to buff the lower leadership characters, even if they're not quite in position because they have a lower leadership to buff back. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility to increase the resing power there.
Yes, the only downside to that really is that Lich Priests seem to suffer from the same issue the vampires suffer from, in that they're only leadership 8. So it doesn't give a huge buff, but I mean it's there, as you say, and I think you're going to play around this a lot, so you're always going to make sure your Lich Priests are in range of each other.
I think it's less of an issue here because specifically in Mortuary Cult, you're probably going to want to run multiple characters. So, and by that I mean multiple Lich Priests. So Lich Priest means the Lord level and the Hero level caster, so it's not just one of the two. But yeah, so you're probably looking at running somewhere between 2 and maybe even 5 casters, so you can get a lot of use out of that role.
Definitely. Next up, then we have the Sepulchral Animus. Sepulchral, I think that's how you pronounce it.
I think that's right.
So before you're about to make a casting roll, and critically you have to do this before you make a casting roll, one of your Lich Priests can draw what's called the magical animus of any nearby undead constructs. So you can pick a unit that has the Nekaran undead special rule, which is basically most things in the list, and whose troops type is Swarm, Monstrous Infantry, Monstrous Cavalry, Monstrous Creature, or Behemoth. That unit loses a number of wounds between 1 and 3, which you can choose. So you can choose between 1 and 3 wounds for that unit to lose. And the Lich Priest basically then adds that number of wounds to their casting roll. So you can effectively one of your models and add that to your magic test.
Yeah, and you definitely have a unit in mind when you're thinking of doing this. What unit do you think is best for fueling these spells? What are you going with?
So what you want is a cheap unit that's got a lot of wounds, basically,
Mm.
that you don't mind taking damage, and one that you can kind of keep hidden relatively easily, so you can just effectively use them as a just continuous source of spellcasting buffs. So I've immediately thought of the Tomb Swarms for this. Take a big chunky unit of them to sit behind your lines in and around your priests. I think they can probably provide some kind of physical defense as well in terms of redirecting charges, that sort of thing. But in theory, every single turn, you can for whatever number you need to boost your charge roll by, and the turn after,
Heal them
resurrect
back
them up
up.
again.
Yeah. Because they're a swarm, they heal the maximum, which was a level
Yep.
plus D3. So yeah, really,
Plus the
really
extra
solid
one
there.
if you're in range. So you really, on as absolute minimum with your level 4 casters, you're healing 6 wounds a turn.
Yeah.
So there's 2 spells you can get +3 to cast from.
Yeah,
Straight off the bat. So +7 to cast on some of your spells is basically going to guarantee the key spells go off.
Yeah, that's an incredible rule. But do you want to hit me
Yeah.
with another even better rule?
Oh, I love this rule, and I'm already regretting not making more use of this in my trial army list that we're going to come on to in a minute. But this is called the Terrors Below. So any Tomb Scorpion or a unit of Necro Serpents. Now it took me ages to find out what a Necro Serpent was, because in the main Forces of Fantasy book, the only thing that's got a Necro Serpent in it are the Necropolis Knights, which you can't take in Mortuary Cult. And I was like, where the hell are Necroserpents? And then I realised the Arcane Journal, and I love that they've done this, is that the Arcane Journal doesn't just contain these special rules, it contains a load of units that you don't get in your main book that you can add into various things, and I think you can just add them into the Grand Army as well. Which means when you scroll down, you can find a Necroserpent that has its own little profile. So for 2 points a model, you can give this to your Tomb Scorpion or a unit of Necroserpents. And when one of those units is placed on the battlefield as a result of using From Beneath the Sands, which is another whole set of special rules you can do, where you can basically use your Lich Priests to summon units that are in ambush onto the battlefield. When they come on using that, and that basically the Lich Priest can drop a unit within 12 inches of it. When that happens, you pick an enemy unit that's within 8 inches of your Tomb Scorpion and Necroserpents. And it has to be an infantry or heavy infantry unit. And that unit must then make a number of initiative tests equal to the unit strength of your unit. And then this is where it's really nasty. For every test that is failed, a single model belonging to the enemy unit is removed from play as a casualty. So no saves, no regeneration, no wards, nothing like that. You just fail initiative test, and that's it. You are into the sand, which I think is just amazing. When you look at the Necroserpents, they've got a unit strength of 3 because they're monstrous cavalry or whatever the equivalent is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take a unit of 3 of those, you're immediately making a enemy unit take 9 initiative tests. Which anything that's kind of just regular low initiative 2, 3, you're going to lose quite a lot of models quite quickly. And in particular, if your opponent's hiding single wizards or characters in awkward to reach places, I think they become very vulnerable to this very quickly.
Onto unit of note. Now, the one that I think will be on everyone's mind is the Tomb Scorpion. This thing is an absolute monster. And it is a monster. So, for 70 points...
Brilliant.
Yeah, great.
It's that comic genius that gets you through life, isn't it?
Absolutely. For 70 points, and then it's 2 points to get the Terror Below as well, which is bizarre that it costs so little for the Tomb Scorpion compared to the Necros Serpents. But yeah, anyway, so 70 points. It gets you a T5 monster with 3 wounds, a 5-up save, and a 6-up regen. Reasonably beefy for the points. Not super beefy, but you're probably starting it in an ambush, and then you're going to try and, summon it in with a Lich Priest. Another reason to run multiple of your, Lich Priests gives you multiple opportunities to bring units in from ambush within range of the Lich Priests. It's close order, so it lets you do, redirecting shenanigans, frenzy baiting, overrun, making your opponent, position weirdly. Just a really valuable tool to have. It's also fairly fast. You probably aren't deploying them on the board, but if you want to, they've got Vanguard, they move 7 inches, and they have Swift Stride, so they can actually get charges off on units where you might not expect them to be able to do that. They're also unbelievably fast. Not unbelievably fast. They're also unbelievably killy for their points. You get 4 attacks at weapon skill 4, strength 5, AP2 with a killing blow and monster slayer. You can instead take 1 attack with poison and no AP, just at strength 5 with strikes first if you need to try and thin out something that's charged you. But realistically, you're probably not doing that.
Yeah, just
You
gonna
also get
wait, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. You get D3 stomp attacks at strength 5. You get Indomitable 1. It's such a strong package for 70 points. And I think the only thing stopping you from taking 3 is the fact that most tournaments, and that'll filter down to a lot of regular play, are going to say max 3 of each unit. Otherwise, I'd be running probably 6 of them because they are so good. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, no, I really like it. I think, as you say, combining it with the jumping up wherever you need it, I think is going to be really, really useful, because if you're building any kind of list that relies on kind of line infantry in the middle, or line constructs in the middle, the ability for you to pop this up behind your opponent. Obviously, you can't charge on the turn that you come up, but the minute that you're behind your opponent's army and gives you access to their rear, I think is really, really good. And as you say, you can start it on the board. It is fast enough, but I think you're going being fast isn't necessarily great for the Mortuary Cult, because then you're just going to get out of range of your healing. You're going to be out of range of all your buffs. So
But
I'm not
coming up
entirely sure that's the
behind,
most useful in this list.
yeah, coming up behind the enemy, because there are 2 ways to make your Lich Priest fast in this list outside of a dragon, or even taking a dragon and just like march blocking with them. You can do a lot of really frustrating things with the Tomb Scorpions. Just to quickly talk about From Beneath the Sands, because we haven't talked about it. Basically, each Lich Priest in the command subphase, so start of the turn, gets to make a leadership test. You pick 1 unit that you're trying to summon from reserves. If you pass the test, you can basically bring it in within 12 inches, completely within 12 inches of the Lich Priest that's summoning it. But you have to be wholly out of 6 inches of enemy models. Still pretty flexible, much better than coming in from a board edge, much better than having to roll for reserves. And if you fail the test, then it doesn't do it, and you have to try and bring it in next turn. But if you're running, for example, 3 characters, you could theoretically try and bring in a unit of the Necrosphinxes, a couple of Tomb Scorpions, whatever flexible positioning you want to go for. Just being able to summon a charge blocker is really nice. If you think that, yeah, absolutely. If you've got some Necroserpents in reserve, for example, they've got quite a lot of wounds. If you think that your opponent's unit is going to do a dent to whatever you've got in front of it, but they don't have enough damage to completely kill that unit, just put the Necroserpents in front, tie them up, make it really difficult for them to deal with. Yeah. All right, moving on. So we have got some magic items as well. So I think there were less magic items that really stood out to me compared to Orcs, but I think that's because the base rules and the base, sheets that they're improving are better. So do you want to give us a quick run through on the magic items you've picked out?
Yeah, so my absolute favourite at the start, and I think you're going to probably see this in most lists that are going to make the use of the Necroserpents or the Scorpion. It's called the Scarab Brooch. Only 20 points. It's from the main book, and it extends the range of Beneath the Sands to 18 inches. Now, it's important to note that Beneath the Sands, you've got to be completely within that 12 inches, or in this case, the 18 inches. So you've got to fit your whole unit within that 12 inches. So to extend that to 18, you don't need me to explain the combinations that can come from that, and just having that extra 6 inches of play is excellent, and allows you to keep the Lich Priest safer if you are going to play that game of blocking things up and trying to drop behind, or allows you to just to reach out and touch something a bit further away, because you've got the 18-inch range off the Scarab Brooch and another 8-inch range for the delivery of the initiative tests. So you've gone up to 26-inch threat range effectively with the Beneath the Sands rules then. So you can really properly reach out and touch something that your opponent isn't expecting.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably been 15 years since I last looked at the area of a circle, but off the top of my head, I think a 12-inch circle going to an 18-inch circle, I think you're about doubling the area you're covering. It's not an extra 6 inches, effectively. It's an extra 6 inches all the way around, which means you've got a huge zone of control, which is really nice to have. I do like it. 20 points. I can see when I was writing my list, it was definitely one of the first things I cut when I was trying to squeeze things in.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's really good, but also in my my philosophy would be just make better positioning plays. But I don't think that means you shouldn't take it. I just mean,
Yeah.
I think when I'm writing lists and trying to squeeze as much stuff in as possible, it's one of the things where I'm like, I can cut this because I can just play better. That's sort of the thinking there.
Yeah, I think it's there as well from my perspective as a quite aggressive sort of threat. That 26-inch threat
Mm-hmm.
range, any person that is taking single characters, infantry characters
Sure.
that are behind their units, you can turn one, reach out and just
Especially if you've got something like a dragon.
yeah,
Yeah.
and just
Oh,
finish
oh
them
no,
straight off the bat.
because it's before movement, so it'd be
Yeah.
unless they've really messed up the positioning. But
Yes.
turn
Yeah, no,
turn
that's a
two,
fair
you
point.
can
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely
So turn
threaten.
two, yeah.
Yeah. All right. What do you got next up?
Next up is the Hieratic Jar, 25
Mm,
points. Now, this is common, so you can take as many of these as you like. It allows the bearer to use Arise twice in a turn. Now, these are one-use items, so if you want to do this more than once with a character, you've got to buy multiples of these. But so it's not quite as good as the Vampire Count's equivalent, but it is it's cheap enough that I think you could put a couple of these in your list and not feel too bad about it.
yeah, I really like the Vampire Counts version. I'm not as involved. I don't know if I love that for Mortuary Cult specifically here. I think it's good. I think maybe it is because you can stack the double, so you're getting 2 wounds per on a bone dragon, and if you've got 2 things near it, you can theoretically heal it, or like a necrosphinx here, theoretically heal it up to 6 wounds. Yeah, no, it's 25 points a pop. Just feels a bit much for me. What's the third one you've
Yeah,
gone
it
for? Oh,
was
sorry.
it was definitely definitely similar to your approach to the Scarab Brooch. It was the first thing I cut when I was running
Yeah,
out of points at the end of writing the list. I was like, these are nice, but I'm going to have 3 casters doing this, so hopefully not more than 3 units a turn are taking a pounding. So
sure.
hopefully I don't need it. But yes, the last one then is called the Staff of Awakening, 50 points, so a bit more price than the other two. Um, a high priest who uses a rise can, or will always, I guess, regain additional D3 wounds. So you're going into your infantry, you've got wizard level 4 plus D3 plus the 1 from Mortuary Cult plus another D3 for this. So
And it's
it is
specifically only infantry and cavalry, isn't
it
it?
is restricted to infantry and cavalry, but you did note there was a couple of cavalry pieces that you thought might benefit from this, Ed.
Yeah, so monstrous cavalry only regen wizard level, which is still 4. But what if you were able to add, on average, an increase of 50% to your sepulchral stalkers? Not your stalkers, sorry, your necro serpents. It's just quite nice to have.
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
lovely. I didn't put any of these on because they're kind of more general ones for Tomb Kings, and they're a little bit less exciting. But Lore Familiar, you're running wizards, you're going to want Lore Familiar. Always want
Yeah,
to have Lore Familiar. Um, I really like Flying Carpet here. It's a lot cheaper than taking a dragon. It means that your Tomb King, your Lich Priests are probably safer from fire as long as you're positioning correctly. Lets you get around the board, keep up with those faster moving units. And also the Cloak of the Dunes, which is basically Flying Carpet 2.0. Costs 50 points, gives you flying 9 inches. If you move over enemy units in the remaining move subphase, you can do D6 strength 2 hits AP 1, I think. That bit, just ignore it. It's basically a flying carpet that lets you also stand in a unit. If your opponent's spamming, for example, Pillar of Flame, you can be safer by standing in a unit of something. All right, so magic items over. We've got some lists. Now, we've gone 2 separate ways on the lists. Whenever I'm writing lists in general as a sort of basis, or for, cracking the codex, judging the journal, I tend to go for sort of what is the good stuff you want to put in the list. This is sort of like a generically good list for the detachment. These are the things that I think are good. Lewis has gone for something a bit more spicy, so there's 2 very different takes on the list that we've gone for. I'm not saying that mine's better or worse than his. Mine's got 3 of because they're very good units, whereas Lewis has gone for a bit more interesting. So, first of all, I've got 2 high priests, both level 4. One has got the magic carpet and the lore familiar. The other one has the cloak of Dunes. Oh, hey, those are the 3 items I just said that are really, really good. Just want to get your priests where you need them to be. Make sure that you're doing the buffing, doing the debuffing, getting what you can out of the list. I had some points left over. I went for a level 1 mortuary priest, partially to unlock the additional healing on the high priests, and also partially just for another rise. It's really nice to get, if you're running some, let's say, 3 necrosphinxes, you might want to heal them for a bit more. Moving on into core, there's 3 units of 5 skeleton horse
Sorry, Ed.
archers.
Can I go back to your mortuary priest? Did you make him battle standard bearer?
No, I did think about it, but the mortuary priest is going to be quite easy to kill. There's not
Yeah.
really much in the way of infantry, so a lot of what you're doing is hiding the models.
Mm-hmm.
And the mortuary priest doesn't have any movement buff. I did think about putting him on a skeleton horse, but I didn't have the points. So really, it's just there for, be beneficial for a couple of turns, maybe die to a stray fireball. Too bad, so sad. If it was a BSB, they wouldn't get more points for killing it that way, but
Yeah.
it's more of a risk, so I just wanted to go with that. But yeah, that is
That's
something we probably should have
interesting take.
mentioned.
Yeah.
The BSB is very good. I just don't think this is the list that benefits from it. So on to core, skeleton archers, 5 units of 5, massive horse, just to because you've got to. That's something we didn't talk about. You've got to get over 33% core instead of
A lot of core.
25%. Yeah, which is not ideal. You can take a couple more interesting things in core, but you're still stuck with some points that you've got to fill. So I've gone for 3 units of horse archers because horse archers is good. They just play around the flanks. They're annoying. You can do things with them. And then there's 1 unit of skeleton horsemen who are bad, but in this case, they are just a redirector or I didn't even give them spears. They're just there to, 60-point chaff, basically, is what I'm thinking.
Oh, rubbish.
They are, yeah. However, speaking of not rubbish, I've gone for a unit of 6 Ushabti. I did go for the Ancient, and they've got the Ritual Blades. I really like monstrous infantry in units of 4. However, you can only take a single unit of Ushabti in the course. So I plumbed for the unit of 6, 2x3. It's still a good detachment, setup for them. I don't think I'd want to go 2x4. 8 feels a little bit too spicy for them. And then there's also 3 Necro Serpents as well, upgraded to have ambush so they can the terrors below.
Yeah.
And then special, 3 Tomb Scorpions and a Necrosphinx, and rare, 2 Necrosphinxes. So I've just gone.
You really want Sphinxes here, don't you, Ed?
What is good in life? To see your enemies crushed between the feet of the Necrosphinxes and the Tomb Scorpions. That's what I've gone with. So yeah, I've just taken the good units as many times as possible, and then sort of gone from there. Anything to say before we move on to yours, which is a little more varied?
Yeah, no, I like it. As you say, you've very much gone. I'm going to have Scorpions and Necrosphinxes, and everything else is either buffing it or effectively chaff, other than the Ushabti, which I guess really, I assume you're just going to play those Ushabti to keep those high priests alive. Is that really?
Yeah, it's very much
idea?
like your sort of mid-board battle line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just getting gum everything else up so the Necrosphinxes can go and do their work.
Yeah, something as well we didn't mention is you can take veteran Ushabti, I think they're called, or
Yes.
Yeah,
I've got a few on my list. Yeah.
So they're interesting. They are slower than the normal Ushabti, which is weird. They are higher weapon skill and higher strength as well, I think. So they get up to strength 7, which is really nice, but it's harder to get them anywhere. So I just thought, stick with the normal Ushabti, but also you can only take normal Ushabti as core.
Yeah.
All right. So on to your list. How about you give us a run through on this one?
Will do. So I think I think we're on similar lines, Ed, but I think there are some actual fundamental differences here, where it might look like 2 very similar lists, but I think they're going to play a little bit differently, and there's going to be some crucial differences in the units. So similar to you, same 3 characters, 2 level 4 Lich Priests, and a Mortuary Priest. One of my Lich Priests has got the Scarab Brooch I talked about earlier for the extra range on the terrace below, and the other one's got the Lore Familiar. I know you haven't yet picked your Law of Magic yet. I'm leaning towards Elementism because of access to Earthen Ramparts for the 5-up ward save. I think the Ushabti, there are a lot of points, but they're only sitting there with heavy armor.
Yeah,
and that's kind of obviously got 6-up regen for being a part of the Tomb Kings, but I'm not entirely sure that's resilient enough for their points, so I think I'm going to want that 5-up ward save to try and keep them alive a little bit longer.
I agree. I think I definitely want one Elementalism caster, the one with the Lore Familiar. I don't think I want to go for a second one. I think you probably want to branch out into Necromancy for the debuffing or Illusion for the positional play. But one Elementalism caster seems like the right choice.
Yeah, that's definitely the sort of thing where I'm going to be on the trial it and see market. I think to see how much Earthen Ramparts you need and how much you don't. But yeah, so we'll see how that one goes. I have given the Mortuary Priest the Battle Standard Bearer in this one. Appreciate your concerns about it being relatively easy to kill, but I think from my experience with the vampires, you need to be able to reroll those leadership tests to get off your Arise. There's nothing more frustrating than failing that leadership 8 test each command phase and just doing nothing with your Arise. So being able to re-roll that, I think, is really important. And then again, when it comes to the big lumps of slow moving infantry in the middle, which I've more gone down the route of, being able to take D3 off all of your unstable losses, I think is really, really important as well.
Sure.
Just means you take a charge from something that thinks it's going to smash you. You then just soak up all of those wounds from your battle standard bearer, and then you're just laughing at that point because then you can punch back.
Yeah. Although in this case, the units that you're taking actually kill stuff instead of being skeletons and
Indeed.
zombies. So
Yes.
might be
They are
less of
slow.
a.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
So going on to core, then 2 units of skeleton horse archers, similar to you, they're just there to kind of harass and harry. Really, I love the fact that they are on horses, they are skirmishing, and they can shoot with their arrows of what is it called to ignore all of the debuffs on the hit roll. I think they've also got the ability to do a bit of line of sight blocking as well for the constructs. I think you could probably save yourself some shooting there from just having these guys just get annihilated. Got my tomb swarms, as I said earlier, they're literally just there to stand behind everything else to boost up the casters and then get healed for making it stickhead. Similar to you, Necroserpents in there. I've gone for 4 this time because I had a few points left over, so they'll be dishing out 12 initiative tests when they pop up, which I think will be tasty. I don't have anything else to take advantage of that. That's where I've definitely gone down a different route to you. I do love it. I really think it's good. I just couldn't find anywhere else to lose the points to put more Team Scorpions in or anything like that. And again, similar to you again, 6 Ushabti there. I think they're going to be the big block that sits in the middle and just refuses to die for long enough that everything else can come and kill everything, which is what we like. Moving on to special, I have taken 3 of the vulnerable Ushabti. Venerable. They are 7 points more, but as you say, I think there's a lot more to them, and I think they've also got magic resistance too. If I could take the vulnerable ones in core, I'd definitely do it. I think the 7 points extra is worth it.
Yeah.
Just to debuff the casting coming at you even more, I think is really good. I've got my first Necrolith Colossus here, the Bone Giant. I am with you, Ed. I think the Next Sphinx is better, but he is 40 odd points more per model.
Sure.
So I've got 2 of them in the list, got 1 more in rare, and I think that would have been 80 points I'd have had to take from somewhere else.
Quantity is a quality all of its own, so
Indeed.
I get you.
And I think with the kind of the big lump of Ushabti in the middle, the Colossus on either side, I think that makes a pretty unchargeable death ball in the middle of a battle line. And I guess what we didn't mention earlier in terms of the spells for the High Priests is that you do have access to the same spell the Vampires counts get for reserve move. So you can start dishing reserve move out across the board. Obviously, you need to get a 10 plus to make it happen to your whole army.
But if only there was a way to get that consistently with this
there
army.
was a way to boost your casting rolls by 1,000,000, then
yeah, we didn't talk about it, but that is the spell that you should be taking, probably on all of the casters.
Yeah, take the reserve move for sure. I sunk a few points into rare actually. I've gone with the Screaming Skull Catapult. I'm not sure about this. I could quite happily swap this for something else.
Yeah.
But I do like Skulls of the Foe, which is the upgrade where wherever the blast ends up, everything within 2d6 inches of the center of the blast starts taking leadership debuffs. So it's the sort of thing that I would never take for kind of its damage output, but I think the ability to mash around with leadership when you've got loads of terror causing stuff and fear causing units, I think you have the potential just to make it more likely that your opponent is going to just not be able to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
But I could easily be convinced to take that out.
No, I think that's interesting. I'd like to see you drop one of the elementalism for necromancy as a law.
Yes.
Just really combine those two and double down on making your opponents run away.
Yeah, because you could be up to sort of -4, -5 off people's leadership by this point. So I think you can really stack that and make that work.
Yeah.
But yeah, second Necrolith Colossus. I love their rule for when they charge because they have the potential for the infinite attacks, which is a rule they took out of 40k to its detriment, in my opinion. But yes, the ability of these bone giants to go in and in theory get infinite attacks, I think is only ever fun. And then I have taken the Casket of Souls. I personally couldn't. So obviously you get the +1 to cast all the
Mhm.
time, which is really good because you're a +5 to cast before. But it stacks well with that. And then obviously the Light of Protection spell to give out the ward save to everything within 18 inches. That's a massive aura of ward save. And it's also an aura of -1 to hit. So basically, your whole army is -1 to hit, assuming you get that
It
spell off.
it is good. Technically as well, if you want to be cheesy, and I don't recommend you doing this, even though it is rules as written. The Casket of Souls is an immovable object that cannot be moved by its crew in the remaining moves subphase. You know when the reserve move that it would get from the Lich Priest happens? Not
Okay,
in
I
the
hadn't
remaining
thought
move
about
subphase.
that.
So technically you can move them up the board. You shouldn't. We know what
No.
immovable means, but yeah,
And
just to
realistically,
point that out.
you can place this somewhere near the front of your
Oh, on the front
lines,
lines, yeah.
and you're going to get that. You're going to get the 18 inches basically going to cover the whole board anyway. All the meaningful bit of the board where your slow moving stuff is going to be fighting, which
Sure.
is where you can dictate. As long as your opponent's going to come to you, you can say you're going to be fighting everything at -1 to hit. I'm going to have ward save against everything, which is it does add up. It's only a 6+, but I think it does add up. So
Sure.
there we are.
Yeah. Very nice.
Two big blocks of Ushabti in the middle,
Mhm.
two bone giants either side, all being buffed by the spells. Tomb Swarm, Casket of Souls. Job done.
I'm going to have to bleep every time you say that.
Is it enough for us to get demonetized for
No,
all
but I
of
just
the
think it'd be funny
millions
to
of
do.
pounds we're making from our 10 viewers?
Anyway, before it all goes wrong, thank you for watching. We'll be back in 2 or 3 weeks' time with another one of these. We're having great fun making them. Do let us know what you want to see in the comments. Hopefully, Dwarves will be out by then. We can maybe have a look at whatever
Ooh.
the non-Slayer Army of Renown is, because Slayers are terrible. Maybe they'll have rules to make them more interesting. But let us know what you want to see. As always, we are still growing the channel. Subscriptions and likes and comments help us enormously. Please do leave those if you can. Please comment about how Lewis needs to stop saying sucked off. And thanks for watching.